Hey, I'm Anthony Ledonne, and I'm Lauren Lane's husband. Like, I think I'd come to the table with like 1,000 really good ideas, and after she shot each one of them down, she's like, "We did
No,
this one."
no. So emergency contact, so it is a book. It's coming out in October. But it actually started as a screenplay. So how this had sort of come about was like, I had up to this point written, I don't know, 30-ish books. But for some reason, when we go on road trips, we're looking for audible audio, anything. And we always listen to, oh, what a cutie.
She will not stop leaving me alone. So I'm just going to hold her while you talk and she'll be
I got to distract by the cuteness. So yeah, emergency contact, we thought, okay, we want to write a screenplay. And we'd known for, I think, years, we'd been talking about it for years. Let's write a screenplay.
Yeah, we kind of dabbled like with the books to learn how to write a screenplay.
Yeah, and we had batted around so many ideas, and I think we sort of got sick of each other, like both of us saying like, "Oh, we're going to do it," and we just never did it. So we said, you know what, no more. We're going to do this. And I did actually go to my idea notebook and pulled out an idea that I knew was a strong premise, and I had always wanted to write a book for it, but for some reason I just couldn't. I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was the right time. And in hindsight, I think I was probably like, well, I needed help because I had an idea that I thought was strong. And I'm like, well, maybe I need a co-writer. So that's how we did that. And ended up with him.
Eventually settled on me. Test books that you'd written but won't ever share. I have one of those right now on my computer. It's a sci-fi. And that's as far as I'd ever really gotten in terms of writing dialogue, writing characters, writing really at all. And then, but when she came to me with the idea of emergency contact, it just felt right. And I don't know, we just kind of got together and all of a sudden started throwing around ideas like, well, what if it was this? And what if there was this kind of a scene? And, oh, I have this idea. And it was just kind of a brainstorm. Did we do that before we went to Lake Placid, or was Lake Placid the kind of where we did everything?
Yeah, we took a weekend trip up to Lake Placid and we're like, we're going to get the story down. And that was our only goal. So we did a beat sheet. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the screenplay term for like all the beats that go into a movie. And I do that for my books a lot as well. But this time we were actually doing it for a movie. But there was no division of labor, which
she did everything.
I mean, there really was. It was just, we sort of were like, okay, what would be funny, basically. And then we would throw out an idea and then just build upon it. The hardest part was after we kind of knew like the loose story, like the outline. And then we're like, okay, now we have to actually write it. And that was painful because we were in Lake Placid and we had two beds. So we were sitting on two different beds. It sounds weird because we're married, but that's what they had available. So we were on our own bed, on our respective laptops, writing our first screenplay ever. And then we would just very, I think, tentatively and nervously, even though we've been married for 15 years at that point, like shyly showed our pages to the other person. And then we just kind of would pick the best of like, oh, I like that line and I like that line. And we would blend them basically.
Yeah, I've never felt as naked around her as I did when I said, here's what I wrote this morning. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, and there's something too about, I mean, like usually I don't think I've ever really had to watch anybody else read my work, because usually, you just, with a manuscript, you just email it to your agent, your editor, or, readers get it, you never have to watch it. But there's something very different about writing something. And that's like sort of your heart. Like that's all of your feelings and emotions, like everything who you are. And then watching someone else read it with no facial expression change was an adventure.
Yeah. I've experimented once before trying to take one of her books and convert it or kind of adapt it to a screenplay. And that is pulling teeth, because you kind of have to reverse engineer all the beats. And then you got to pull it out. Well, do we save all the dialogue? Do we dump it? And I found it to be very difficult. It's a great story, but it's very difficult. Going this way around, at least for me, it was a lot easier. Not to say that it was an easy process by any stretch of the imagination, but at least we knew where the start was and where we were going. Like we knew what the story was. And then it was just a matter of, okay, well, how do we build out the scene or the setting and the dialogue and everything else to make it less cinematic and more novelistic?
Yeah, I agree. I was very nervous about it because it's definitely something I'd never tried, but in actual practice, looking back at it, it almost just felt like this wonderfully detailed outline, where you like, to his point, like we have the dialogue, we have the story. I think one thing we did have to let go of is keeping a very strict adherence to the screenplay, because we quickly found out there's some things that do work on the screenplay that you can show that when you're trying to make work in in a book. For example, we had a lot of flashing to his family member. It's a road trip story. So we have this family in Chicago, they're in New York. And in a movie, all you have to do is just flash to that scene and you don't have to explain anything. Whereas in a book, you have to be like, well, who are these people? Like, whose point of view is it in? So I think we did phase some of that out in the book version.
Yeah.
Just for practicality's sake. It's surreal. And I think I just had my 41st book come out. And it's like, it never gets old, but there really, there is something about that first book.
Do you want to take that one first?
No, you go. It was your first time pulling a book out of a box and seeing your name on it.
Yeah. I got to say, it was pretty cool. It was opening up that box and pulling out that book and seeing, her name in giant letters and then mine in like these tiny little afterthought font.
That's not true.
That's the dream, really, is it's taken this thing, just this idea that we started out with of like, well, why don't we write a screenplay? We said we wanted to do it. Let's write it. We did that. And then our agent said, well, why don't you need to convert it into a novel as well. So we did that. And now it's like, okay, even if the movie never sees the light of day, at least this book will, and that is so exciting. And to be able to do it with it's fun that it's our thing, but I also think, and this is because books are my first love, like you said, it's great if the movie gets made. I hope that it will. I loved writing a screenplay, but like books are sort of like my bread and butter. It's like where my heart lives. And there is something about holding something that you created that you can't ever really get with a movie or even an ebook. And even now, like, I don't know how many books later, like it never, I wouldn't say like weep or anything, but it makes you kind of like teary eyed. I can't help it.